A medieval peasant in 14th century England did not have a pantry, a refrigerator, or a gas station half a mile down the road. And yet when he was working 12 hours in the field and needed something between meals, he had more snack options than the average American vending machine. Every one of them was made from something he or his wife or his neighbour produced, preserved, or foraged themselves. Zero cost, zero packaging, and a nutritional density that would embarrass anything sold in a crinkly wrapper today. Convenience food has existed for thousands of years. It just used to be real food. These are the 15 snacks that kept a farmer fueled through a 16-hour harvest day. A rotating system so well engineered for storage, nutrition, and portability that a $270 billion industry had to bury every last one of them to sell you a bag of flavoured cornstarch instead. Number 1. The dried apple ring. Take an apple, core it, slice it 1/8 of an inch thick, about 3 millimeters. String the slices on a cotton thread and hang them near the hearth until leathery and chewy. By 3800 BCE, Swiss lake settlements along Lake Zurich were already preserving apples in smokehouses that maintained fruit quality for up to 18 months. By the medieval period, dried apple rings were one of the most common stored foods in Northern Europe. A single household apple tree could produce enough dried fruit to last from September through April. The drying concentrates natural sugars and fibre, while removing only water. A cup of dried apple rings delivers about 209 calories and 3 grams of fibre, with enough natural sweetness to feel like candy. Compare that to a bag of gummy bears from the gas station. Same calories, delivered through corn syrup, gelatin, and artificial dyes. The medieval version is simpler, cheaper, and nutritionally superior. For your kitchen, core and slice 3 apples, hang the slices over a radiator for 3 to 5 days and store them in a glass jar. You will eat them for the next 3 months. Number 2. Quince preserved in honey. A quince is a hard, tart fruit that is almost inedible raw. But when you stew it in hot honey, the tannins neutralize and the result is a sticky, intensely flavored confection that lasts months without refrigeration. The Roman cookbook of Apicius, compiled in the late 4th century, gives recipes for stewing quince with honey. By the medieval period, quince paste was a staple across Europe. Cotignac in France, Cotogna in Italy, Can de Membrillo in Spain. Honey preserves it because its pH sits between 3.2 and 4.5, and its water activity falls below 0.6, making it hostile to bacteria. A peasant with a quince tree and a jar of honey had a shelf-stable sweet snack that delivered fibre, vitamin C, and antioxidants. The modern equivalent is a fruit roll-up made from corn syrup and artificial flavour. Number 3. The hazelnut. The most common nut in medieval Northern Europe. Hazelnuts grew wild across the continent, and a single October afternoon of gathering could yield enough to last months. Archaeological evidence from early medieval Ireland shows hazelnut shells at 40% of excavated sites, confirming that gathered foods remained critical even in farming societies. A 2024 study from the University of Oxford used hazelnut shell remains to reconstruct ancient woodland patterns, showing how central this nut was to everyday life. Hazelnuts contain more than 60% fat, 15 grams of protein per 100 grams, and high amounts of unsaturated fatty acids, minerals, and vitamins. A peasant cracked them with a stone, carried a handful in a belt pouch, and had portable calorie-dense fuel that required no preparation, no cooking, and no preservation. The modern equivalent is a protein bar containing whey isolate, soy lecithin, and maltodextrin. The hazelnut delivered the same macronutrients 800 years ago without a factory or a wrapper. Number 4. The roasted chestnut. In mountainous regions like the Apennines and the Cevennes, where wheat refused to grow on rocky terrain, entire communities survived on chestnuts. The tree thrived on slopes that defeated every grain crop, and chestnut flour replaced wheat flour entirely in some areas. It was called tree bread across the Mediterranean, and some mills ground nothing else. 1 cup of roasted chestnuts delivers roughly 350 calories, significant vitamin C, potassium, and magnesium, but almost none of the fat that makes other nuts so calorie-dense, making it an ideal carbohydrate source for heavy labor. Medieval market fairs sold roasted chestnuts as street food, and a peasant could roast his own in hearth ashes for nothing. Number 5. The wedge of aged hard cheese. Cheese is concentrated milk, protein, fat, and calcium compressed into a compact, transportable, shelf-stable form. Medieval monasteries became the great innovators, experimenting with aging techniques in cool cellars. Parmesan production began around 1200. Hard cheeses lasted months without refrigeration because aging removes moisture and creates conditions hostile to spoilage bacteria. Cheesemakers packed wheels in salt, submerged them in brine, or even buried pots underground. A 1 ounce, 28-gram wedge delivers about 7 grams of protein and 20% of your daily calcium. The modern protein bar costs $3 and contains 30 ingredients. The medieval cheese wedge required 1. Milk. Number 6. The curd cheese ball. Heat milk to just below boiling, stir in vinegar, strain the curds through a cloth, press with a weight, and salt. That is fresh farmer's cheese, made this way since at least the time of Homer, who describes polyphemus curdling milk in wicker strainers. Archaeologists have found clay sieves with cheese residues dating back over 7,000 years in Kujawi, Poland. In the medieval period, soft curd cheeses were a primary protein source for the working class. Pressed into rounds and allowed to dry, they hardened into portable lumps of almost pure protein that lasted days without refrigeration. 100 grams delivers roughly 11 grams of protein and 84 milligrams of calcium. For your kitchen, heat a quart of whole milk, stir in 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, strain through a cloth, press for an hour, and salt. You have just made a snack that sustained the European working class for centuries. Number 7. The trencher. A thick slab of coarse, day-old bread used as a plate. The diner placed stew or meat on top, and by the end of the meal, the bread had soaked up every drop of fat and broth. Then the trencher was eaten, by the diner or given as alms to the poor. Trenchers were typically 3 to 4 days old and made from coarse whole wheat flour. Every scrap of bread served a purpose. Every drop of broth was captured. Modern food waste in the United States runs at 30 to 40% of the entire food supply, over £130 billion a year in landfills. A medieval household designed its tableware to make waste physically impossible. Number 8. The oat cake. Oats, water, and a pinch of salt. Press flat, bake on a hot stone, and you have a portable disc that survives a full day in a leather pouch. In the 14th century, French chronicler Jean Froissart documented that Scottish soldiers carried nothing but a flat metal plate and a sack of oatmeal on campaign, making cakes over fire to sustain themselves through forced marches. Oats deliver about 13 grams of protein per 100 grams dry, along with beta-glucan fiber that research from Lund University in Sweden has linked to improved cholesterol and long-lasting satiety. A modern granola bar costs $2 and contains 15+ ingredients. The oat cake contained 3 empowered men across the Scottish Highlands. For your kitchen, 1 cup of rolled oats, a pinch of salt, a tablespoon of melted butter, and enough hot water to bind. Press flat, cut into rounds, bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius, for 20 minutes. A month of portable snacks in a single batch. Number 9. The medieval wafer. A thin batter of flour and water pressed between two heated iron plates until crisp. By the 13th century, these oublies were eaten by all segments of society, and the oublieurs formed their own guild in Paris in 1270. A Smithsonian article documents how these medieval wafer presses evolved directly into the modern waffle iron. The first known waffle recipe appears in Le Ménagier de Paris, written around 1393. As cooks gained access to new spices after the Crusades, the oubli became the gaufre, then the waffle, then the waffle. The medieval peasant ate the original without maple syrup and an Instagram photo. The fact that it evolved into a multi-billion-dollar breakfast industry tells you how sound the concept was. Number 10. The rose hip. The small red fruit of the wild dog rose contains between 300 and 1,300 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, 20 to 30 times more than an orange. Medieval peasants gathered them in autumn, ate them fresh, or dried them into a paste sweetened with honey. They did not know the biochemistry. They knew rose hips kept their families healthier through winter. The proof of their importance came during World War II, when German submarines cut Britain's citrus imports and the government launched a national campaign to gather wild rose hips for vitamin C syrup, preventing an outbreak of scurvy. The exact hedgerow plant peasants had been eating for centuries became a matter of national survival. Number 11. The strip of salted dried fish. Stockfish was first recorded in the 13th century Icelandic Egil's saga, where chieftain Thorolf Kveldulfsson shipped dried cod from Norway to Britain in 875 AD. By the medieval period, stockfish accounted for most of Norway's trade income, and the Hanseatic League dominated its distribution from ports like Bergen. The preservation was simple. Split the fish, salt it, and dry it to 15 to 20% water content. The result was more than 80% protein by weight. The Christian calendar made it essential. Fast days prohibited meat but allowed fish. A peasant with a strip of stockfish in his pouch had more portable protein per ounce than any energy bar on the market today. Number 12. The cold slice of peas pudding, dried peas, water, salt, and a bit of bacon fat. Boil the peas down until they collapse. Pour into a crock, let it set overnight, and slice it in the morning. One of its earliest mentions appears in the 14th century Formy of Cury. Dried peas contain over 20 grams of protein per 100 grams dry. More protein per weight than most cuts of beef. 200 grams deliver roughly 650 calories, 50 grams of protein, and 85% of your daily iron. The nursery rhyme: peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old, is not a joke. It is a description of how the meal was actually consumed. Number 13. The smoked eel. Eels were the ubiquitous food for smallholders across early medieval England, nowhere more than in the Fenlands. The Domesday Book of 1086 records 77 fisheries in the Lincolnshire Fenlands paying rent in eels, some owing up to £2,500 per year. Ely itself takes its name from the Old English for eel district. A peasant smoked eels over an open fire for a day, producing slices of dense, oily fish that lasted a week. 100 grams of smoked eel delivers 289 calories, nearly 30 grams of protein, and 19 grams of fat. During Lent, when meat was forbidden, smoked eel was the fatty supplement that kept households from collapsing. Research from the University of Cambridge Department of Archaeology has confirmed the central role of freshwater fish in early medieval English diets. Number 14. Honeyed gingerbread. Medieval gingerbread was not the frosted cookie you know. It was a dense mixture of breadcrumbs and honey, flavoured with pepper or ginger, pressed into a hard, chewy slab that lasted weeks. Gingerbread fairs ran across England, France, Holland, and Germany. One Parisian abbey held a gingerbread fair continuously from the 11th to the 19th century. The Tasting History Project has reconstructed medieval recipes and confirmed the original was a shelf-stable, high-energy food quite different from the modern dessert. Honey provided natural antibacterial preservation. The spices extended shelf life further. A piece the size of a matchbox was dense enough with stored energy to fuel a working man through an afternoon. The modern energy bar sells you the same concept for $3, made with maltodextrin and palm kernel oil. Number 15. Wild garlic. Called ramsons in English, it carpets deep forest shade across Europe every spring. Medieval peasants stripped the leaves off the stem and chewed them raw for their pungent flavour. Wild garlic contains allicin, the same sulfur compound in cultivated garlic that gives it antimicrobial properties. Medieval herbalists prescribed it for colds, digestive complaints, and bad blood. Modern research has confirmed allicin has measurable antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal activity. A handful of leaves chewed between meals was a peasant's immune booster and free snack in one. It grows in every temperate woodland in Europe, and most people walk past it every spring without recognizing it. The knowledge of which wild plants were edible used to be common. 2 generations of supermarket dependence erased it. Now step back, 15 snacks, every one shelf-stable without refrigeration, every one free of industrial sweeteners, seed oils, and preservatives. Dried fruits delivered natural sugars and vitamin C. Nuts delivered fat and protein. Dairy delivered calcium and amino acids. Oat cakes and trenchers delivered slow carbohydrates. Foraged foods delivered vitamins that cultivated food missed. Preserved proteins delivered the concentrated calories a working body needed at noon. The peasant ran a seasonal rotation of real food that outperformed the modern snack aisle on every measure except convenience. And the shelf life of the system made it work year-round without electricity, without plastic wrap, and without a chemistry lab. Here is why these 15 snacks disappeared. The food industry discovered it could take cheap commodity grains, wheat, corn, palm oil, run them through an extruder at high heat and high pressure, and sell the result for 10 or 20 times the cost of the raw ingredient. A peasant dried an apple for free. A factory takes the same apple, mixes it with sugar and artificial flavour, presses it into a fruit leather bar, wraps it in plastic, ships it across an ocean, and sells it for $3. More cost, less nutrition. The only thing the factory added was convenience. And convenience was sold to us as an upgrade when it was actually a trade-off for quality. The global snack food market was valued at roughly $266 billion in 2025. $266 billion a year on flavoured cornstarch, extruded potato flakes, and soybean oil-coated puffs. A medieval peasant spent 0 on snacks and ate better. The great-grandmothers who still knew how to string apple rings, press curd cheese, and gather rose hips died, and their daughters walked past the hazel trees and the hawthorn hedges without seeing them anymore. The honest caveat is that medieval peasants also had tooth decay, occasional famine, and parasite loads we do not deal with today. Nobody is saying their lives were easy. But when they did have food, the food was better engineered for human bodies than 90% of what gets sold to you as a snack today. Their problem was quantity. Ours is quality. The 15 snacks above are the template for fixing that. Pick 3. Start this week. Your energy at 3 in the afternoon will tell you everything you need to know. If this kind of practical, historically grounded food knowledge is what you come to this channel for, hit the like button so the algorithm keeps pushing it to the next person whose kids are living on goldfish crackers and fruit snacks. Drop a comment with which of the 15 you already eat or plan to try first. The dried apple rings are the gateway, and I already know half of you are going to start there. And subscribe so you catch the next investigation, because we are rebuilding the complete library of forgotten food knowledge one video at a time. And every view and every comment is one more person remembering what real food looks like.